Hey, this is Toby with 24Sound. Hey, it's been a while for some of you, but glad to see you back. Hey, there is a ducking issue that many of us have, and here's how this issue goes. Oh, and please forgive the noise around me. I got some kids around. Hey, there's this thing where you've got two tracks, and there's bleed from this guest. It's a live recording I've got here, and this guest is in this track, and of course this host is in this guest track, and this guest actually is in this host track. You can kind of see it there below. I've already done a little bit of work to clean this up, but nonetheless, I still have it, and it gets kind of significant at times. You'll see right here, this is pretty live between the two. Now, what this ends up sounding like is it can provide some echo, provide some room noise. It's not really echoey, but you can certainly hear a lot more room. No, that's not the end of the world in a live recording. We can solve this in other ways, but we don't need to. There are some, depending on the kind of recording, there's some ways to deal with this. So I'm going to go over a couple of quick ones that we've already gone over before. And then I want to show you a new one that I've added on, okay? So what we're going to do here is that this one, every time this person talks, it's going to cancel this one out. Every time this person talks, it's going to cancel this track out. But also, that when the two of them talk, it's going to bring the levels up or down to our goal. Because here's the deal. There's two sides of this. One, we're trying to cancel each side out, and the other side is when both sides talk. Let's pretend this is a negative 16 LUFS, and this track is also a negative 16 LUFS. Well, when you add the two together, you get negative 13 LUFS. So here's how I solve this in Adobe Audition. You can do this anywhere. This just happens to be the DAW of choice today. So here we have the host and we have a guest. The host bus has a number of effects on it. These are only for one thing. So these all are just for this purpose of ducking the other side. And of course, doing a little leveling. So the first thing we have on the host bus is we have a compressor. Now, here's the thing about the compressor. The compressor does not go when the host talks. So typically, as the host talks, the compressor would pump up and down. I just want to show you how it actually doesn't do that. Okay, so I just wanted to show you. You didn't hear anything. I just want to show you how this didn't pump up and down. You see levels, but you don't see it pump up and down. Let me show you again. So although it's going over the threshold, there is no dynamic compression. But watch this when the other person talks. So don't forget, this is on the host side, but when the guest talks, that does a little bit of compressing. Now, I'm only looking for 3 decibels of compression on the average. Of course, that's not going to be scientific, but around there. And that's exactly what's happening. So what I want is when this person talks, I want this. So when the guest talks, I want the host compressor to compress. When the host talks, I want the guest compressor to compress. So they compress the other person. And I only want them to compress about 3 dB on the average, no more than 6. And I want it to be minimal, but enough. So that's doing 2 things. And I'll show you as we look at our effects rack. So this is the host bus. So again, this host bus is only for removing the sound and doing a little bit of leveling to the host. So just to be clear, for those of you who don't know, the host is sending to the host bus, not the master track. It's sending. So the audio from here goes straight to this bus. When it's in this bus, it first hits a limiter. I have a limiter on here it's basically doing nothing except for catching the very top peak. So I'm not clipping. So I do have my clip. You can see there is some clipping on this track because I'm using a match clip loudness function. So all I need to do is just limit that, and so I will have no distortion. So that's the first one. The second one is I'm going to take this compressor. The compressor is going to Again, as I said, it's going to drop when the other person speaks. So that's the first thing. And what that is essentially is doing is turning down the host track just a little bit. So that's step one. The second thing is now the host track is turned down a little bit. Now we're going to do this expander that we've talked about. You can look in my settings. The purpose of this is to quickly drop about 6 dB, quickly drop the sound. And again, I've got other videos about this. You can go dig around for those, but that's it. You just, it opens, you can watch it. It opens when the person talks, but will quickly drop it breaths in between words. It's just trying to keep that noise floor down. Watch. Okay. So that's what that one is doing. So it's staying down, and we want the threshold to drop when the guest is talking, but the gain drops when the guest is talking, but we want it to stay open when the host is talking. And that's the theme throughout. The second thing we're doing is we're doing another one of these. And again, all I'm doing is the same thing. I want this to stay open when the host talks and drop when the guest talks. But notice, don't notice that yet. Actually, you'll see I've got it keyed in about 250. Why do I have keyed in about 250? I have it in 250 because I went down and looked at this, and I decided that about 250, the host is strongest. And at 250, the guest is really weak. So as I figured that out, and I'm not sure what this is, maybe some cleanup, but as we figured that out, it looks like that's the best. That frequency is the strongest with the host and the weakest for the guest. Now, it's important to choose a frequency because depending on the way the mics are set, there's bleed at different levels of frequency. So often the highs are more, or often the lows are more rolled off between a guest and a host. So that's pretty cool. So you can do it on the low end, you can get more guests than hosts, but that's not always the case. I've seen it opposite, where just depending on how the person talks and the mics are, you actually, and the way the acoustics bounce in the room, you get less on the high end. But generally, the low end is the fundamentals, so I'm looking for those. And I'm only dropping this 20 dB. Now, 20 dB is a lot. 20 dB is essentially almost silenced in some ways on a recording, but that just drops it down. And then the next thing I've got one last one, and that one is a lower threshold. So my threshold on this one is higher. My threshold is this, should be higher. Let's look. Is, a negative 33, and this one's at negative 45. So this is a lower threshold. So theoretically, this pulls it down some, and then this grabs what's left and silences it. So I'm kind of doing a multifaceted approach here. So just to be clear, this compressor is dropping at 3 dB when the other person is talking about, right? This is taking that lowered volume and lowering it even more. It's already low, and so that helps me get a lower threshold here. So the higher the threshold, the more mistakes are going to happen. So that cross ducker helps me lower this one. That lowers it about 6 dB, we hope. Then we get to lower that. Now I'm already down 9 dB-ish. And then this one still has a high gate, but 33 is probably not going to miss anything. It's probably not going to miss any words. So we're safe here. So then that one's going to drop it again, 20 dB. And then this last one takes it down to silenced. It's a multi-step approach. Trying to do this all with one gate. You're gonna hear the gate going in and out. You're gonna have problems, but this almost catches everything. You can even get a little bit more intense with this, especially if I'll do with that first negative 20 or the second negative 21. Sometimes I'll take this and I'll have a frequency here, and maybe I'll also do one in the higher range. I kind of want to do it so I catch more S's, or it just depends on how it is. But just kind of look at what you've got and what is missing, and then you try to put a gate to catch the thing that you're missing, so it opens up when that comes. So you can play around with that. I know it doesn't make a ton of sense, and then I've got the same thing on the guest. So the guest is the exact same thing, except the difference is the guest is they are turned down whenever the host speaks. So here's the host is going to speak, but this is the guest bus. There we go. So that's dropping ish, 3 dB ish. So and then here's the cool thing is when they both talk like this. Here's a little laugh, and let me pull over this compressor. This is the guest compressor. It'll be over on the right. The host compressor will be over on the left. And if I play these both together, so when they're both together, then they both do a little bit of compression. And so when you have these doubling, again, because I want this person to be a mono, and mono, they need to be about -16 on the master output, which is stereo. And this needs to be -16. When you double those together, that's 2 -16 together. That's going to be -13. I'm going to be too high. It's okay, but this is just one more way to keep volume steady so that it doesn't have these moments of blasting. Honestly, it's not a significant difference. This is really one of those super fine-tuned things that will separate you from a lot of other engineers who are just putting it out. A couple other fun things I've been playing around with here. We've talked about the ozone imager. That's fun. I'll often do a vocal rider again on the master of the two, again, to help catch those peaks where they're both talking. This kind of helps regulate everybody together. That can be helpful. I touch a little bit of compression on this. And then on this last one, oh my goodness, I just barely touching a little bit of reverb. I just barely have it in. So that's been fun to just touch in. And it depends on the room. It depends on the source. But on this one, I've got this person is kind of in a reverby room, and this person wasn't. So I was trying to put them both together so they both sound like they're in the same space. So you don't want them to sound like they're in two different spaces. So they were crossed. They were recorded. Oh, these guys weren't actually recorded. They were recorded in the same room. I'm sorry, but I like it. So that's the point. I don't normally put reverb on something, but there's a little bit of verb on this one, and I like it. So you can play around with that. I took a little reverb and I put a parametric, and I rolled off a lot of the low end. That was just an easier way for me to do it. I don't always do this again, but there's just a little bit of, you're just listening. Hey, what does this conversation need? What kind of space do they need to be in? It doesn't sound like all noisy. I'd show you, but it's copyrighted. How it sounds, but all this is doing is just it makes you feel a little different. It's not, you don't notice the reverb. If you notice the reverb, it's too much reverb. It makes it feel different. It makes it, you just think, it makes them feel bigger. It makes them feel like a slightly larger space. So instead of feeling like it's in a small closet, it puts them in a big room. And in doing so, then that's the nature of the conversation. It puts it in a bigger space, so it feels like a bigger conversation. It feels more important. And this is a big conversation, so that's what we're doing. It's real important. I hope that helps you do a little bit of your audio work. If you have questions, problems, just like helping friends out. So give me a buzz. My email is Toby, Toby, at 24sound.com, TwentyFourSound.com. It's 24sound, all spelled out, all one word, TOBY at 24sound.com. Would love to help you out and support you in what you're doing. Thanks so much, and go make the world sound great.